Welcome back, and thank you for joining me on Mr. Jim's Adventures. Last time, Sebastian challenged everything the Academy believed about the boy blamed for Earth's destruction, while Paper uncovered a crime that even he found unforgivable. At the same time, Captain Padrick's secret conspiracy continued moving quietly towards its goal. Today, life at the Phoenix Academy continues as Sebastian and his classmates tackle increasingly difficult lessons. Internal security begins revealing closely guarded secrets about the weapons that protect the fleet, and Paper searches for the final pieces needed to unlock one of humanity's greatest technological mysteries. This is Chapter 11 of The Problem with Aether. Sebastian. Students, I realize most of you would have found last night's assignment extremely difficult. Most people do. It is the hope of IS to find those few and rare souls who can whiz through the calculations. It is from these gems that we select navigators to regularly plot our way. This does not mean, however, that the rest of you do not have to learn how. What did you find the most difficult? Taking Lieutenant Law's advice, the students had learned that Lieutenant Danielson expected participation and would relentlessly question those who didn't volunteer, while those who offered their thoughts were often allowed to give simple answers. Thus, everyone had their hand up. Cadet Snow? Sir, yes, sir. Sebastian leaps to attention next to his desk. I really didn't have much trouble filling in the astrological charts, nor plotting the courses. It was overlaying them to determine which of the 10 vessels should do what and when. There didn't seem to be enough favorable portentous moments to go around. I ended up having multiple ships initiating propulsion at the same time, which complicated the course plots and seemed somehow to unbalance the astrological charts. I will have to review your work, though it does sound like you found a solution, even if it wasn't the best. You may take your seat. Cadet G, what was your biggest problem with the assignment? Min comes to attention. Sir, I had a lot of problems with astrology. It has never been one of my favorite sciences. I couldn't determine if the ships were rising or descending in Scorpio. It seemed it would be different for each ship depending on its orientation. I ended up with 2 astrological readings, which made the course plots almost impossible to complete. 2 astrological charts can be used. I will have to take a look at yours to see why this made your course plotting so hard. Did anyone have a solution that didn't run into these difficulties? Danielson scans the room. The students all look dejected with one exception. Cadet Sanders, could you tell us what you did for the assignment? Sir, I think the assignment was an example of giving us too much information. We didn't need to know the birth date of the pilots, the time since the last course changed, nor most of the data we were given. I used the operation window and the date the ships became a squad. Since all are from Earth, every last atom was part of the dust that formed the planet billions of years ago. I didn't even have to worry about what house the ships themselves were in. On Earth, the sun was rising in Libra at the time the squad was born. With the right sign and treating the ships as a single squad, the calculations for the star charts and the courses change ended up being quite elegant. I only saw one problem, and that didn't bode well for the correction. Sanders started to sit down. Hold on a minute, cadet. Sanders came to attention again. Please don't leave us hanging. What was the problem you saw? Oh, I only needed one star chart and one course calculation. Everyone else was still busy on the assignment. I had enough time to mess around with another astrology reading. The captain was a Scorpio with a strong influence from Jupiter. He had no business making any decisions that early in October. The portents were all wrong for him. Paper. Compartment D wasn't actually a compartment. It was really a series of connected compartments that had had most of the interior bulkheads removed. All but 2 of the original entrances had been sealed. The airlock and the hatch to the original compartment D were the only operational hatches. Paper spent a lot of time checking the security of this place. There are 5 official monitors, each with a pre-programmed image designed to show the spaces as they originally were laid out, with the standard assortment of blankets and tools stored away for some distant future. These were not designed by or maintained by Paper. The crew's technology made no sense to him. Others guaranteed they were working properly, and Paper had to take their word for it. Besides, they weren't security. They were a ruse to make IS think everything was normal. Paper's contribution was roving monitors. Attached to the cleaning and maintenance bots were little cameras designed to blend visually and technologically with the host machines, using the best tech his homeworld could produce. Even they wouldn't be able to detect the devices. Besides, the two types of technology have proven to be incompatible. IS would never be able to see them. This is a two-edged sword. He also couldn't detect their spy devices, which is why everyone who knew about the content of the compartment was carefully screened, and even new parts were scanned by both types of technology for bugs. Paper's devices weren't intended to discover traces of IS spy equipment. They were used to spy on Padrick's people. More than once he had caught a crewman snooping. Once he even discovered a saboteur. The snoops were quickly handled under the direction of Padrick, though she never found out about the saboteur. No, after a long talk with Paper, that one was put in a safe place as insurance. Paper could not allow this project to be completed before he was ready. If events moved too quickly, the saboteur could be reactivated, providing a devastating and time-costing setback. Since none of the devices of either technology registered a problem, Paper made a quick sweep of the perimeter before getting on with the real task of the evening. All airlocks and doors seals were intact and untampered with. No unauthorized crewman was present. No toolboxes were left in places they shouldn't be. The compartment is as secure as Paper could make it. Paper turns the little servo sweeper he'd commandeered towards the illegally acquired pieces stored in the room. They have a long way to go, but even with only a quarter of the parts, he can make out that this is a duplicate of the engine that currently moves the fleet through space. Paper takes pictures of the new items and stores these with the other photos. Each photo is tagged with descriptions of the part and its purpose. He is sure that once he has the design and photos of all the pieces, he could have the engine built. But how does it work? Without that answer, none of this is important. Some parts of the machine are easy: support structures, energy conduits, and devices that convert that energy into mechanical energy to move the other components around. Then there are the parts that only seem to work because of the way the material interacts with the energy. Sort of like electricity passing through a coil generates a magnetic field. Only this wasn't electricity, and these were not made of copper. The key is the source of that energy. He cannot get close enough to the one operating model to study it, which is why this project has his endorsement. Eventually, the power core will be found or built. Researching the device will unfold its mysteries, and the great engine will become something tangible he can replicate. Until that day, he continues to catalog the components, write down their construction, materials used, purpose, and how they tie in with the rest of the machine. Danielson. Rudy, but I thought we were in training. Humolo isn't the only one stunned by Danielson's announcement. IS is spread thin these days. Everyone takes a turn. Even if it is just some routine station, your presence there will free a more experienced officer to handle important jobs. Danielson looks through the punch cards in his hands. Each of you are paired with another officer for a task IS selected to match your strengths, your speciality, and some skill they want you to develop further. It seems most of you won't even miss out on your weekend either. But don't think I'll go easy on you just because you had to watch some boiler tech clean out the turbines in a generator or some other boring task. That's part of your training. You need to learn to be alert no matter how little sleep you get. Danielson hands each of them a card. Here's your assignment. Each of you are to report to the designated location to the officer listed at the time listed. You must allow yourself travel time. There are no acceptable excuses for being late. Danielson returns to the front of the class. Put those cards away. None of you have duty tonight. Right now is my time, and we have wasted enough of it. Today we are going to discuss some basic weaponry. When not in my class, I'm sure you have had plenty of opportunity to train with a variety of weapons, but there are fundamentals about them that they won't teach you in the dojo or on the range. He draws the blade at his hip. It is slightly less than 3 foot long, sharp on one side only. The blade is 2 inches wide for most of the length. At the last 2 inches, the sharpened edge curves back to meet the unsharpened one. This is, as some of you might know, is a saber. While many fencing techniques work with it, it is primarily a slashing weapon. The skill and fighting style required to use it is much different than a longsword or an axe. Cadet Sanders, I believe you have shown some skill with the latter. Sanders jumps to attention next to the desk. Sir, yes, sir. Two of them, actually, dual wielding. Very good. An interesting style that lets you get in close, block, and attack. Now, can you tell me why we are all carrying these instead of, say, a gun? After all, those weapons were used quite effectively by police and military units back on Earth. It's the bullet, sir. Elaborate. Any projectile accelerated to a high enough velocity to effectively harm or kill an opponent would have enough force to puncture a hole. Unlike poking a hole in a hole has vacuum on the other side. Potentially everyone in the compartment can die, not just the target. And it's not just with powder weapons. I once saw a crossbow bolt puncture a steel bulkhead. Fortunately, it was an interior wall and done as a demonstration. A stray shot, even from that weapon, would penetrate a hole. That is why everyone obeys that rule, even the bad guys. At ease, cadet. As you are also aware from your wretched efforts at the range, we do have ranged weapons. Cadet Snow, you seem to be our resident Aether expert. Tell us how these work. Sir, yes, sir. Sabo leaps to attention. Sir, do you want the short answer, the long one, or the really long answer? Danielson chuckles. Let's get a little beyond the basics, but nothing we have to have formulas for, okay? Sir, yes, sir. As you suggested, blasters are based on a controlled Aether reaction. There are many designs, but each have a few things in common. They all have two storage containers. The first is a magnetic bottle containing a very small amount of Aether, generally sheathed in the handle. They also have a reactant. Most will use water because liquid is easy to control and water is the most abundant liquid in the fleet. Next, they have two mechanisms to get these substances together. These range from simple pumps to glyphs to move things, much like the glyph I used to move Aether in my experiment, though the one for Aether is often a physical magnetic device and the other is a pump like on a water gun. Both are very small, sensitive devices designed to move very small particles at a time. The typical blaster moves one molecule of water and the equivalent amount of Aether. Once combined, we get an amazing amount of energy in a plasma-like form. It is neither a liquid or a gas. The resulting plasma is positively charged and about the size of a pea. The rest of the blaster is really a charged copper coil that propels the plasma out the barrel. Good. You got the details without the math. Dennison nods approval. Why is shooting this plasma, as you call it, safer than shooting a projectile? Well, it's not really plasma, but that's the closest description. But it is safer because it doesn't have any physical properties. It will travel right through a bulkhead without damaging it. Then how can this be an effective weapon? There's a long formula and explanation for this, but it really boils down to a naturally occurring hermetic effect. Since the physical part of the base material is water, it will only affect water. Since we are primarily water, we heat up very rapidly as it passes through us, erupting cells and even blowing holes right through us, all while leaving our clothes and metal bulkheads unscathed. Very good. At ease, cadet. Sebo returns to his seat. Since these are so effective at hurting us, why do we bother training with archaic blades? Cadet G? Well, sir, that's a two-part answer. Since the plasma will go through bulkheads, there's the definite possibility of collateral damage. So these are used in extreme situations only. Other times, blades are used. Also, as Cadet Snow forgot to mention, the material required to make the magnetic bottle takes up a good deal of space, leaving very little space for carrying the water, Aether, ammunition. A weapon capable of being effectively used will therefore have a limited capacity. In a long drawn out battle, we will run out of ammo. Therefore, we need the blades to finish the fight. Thank you, Cadet. You may take your seat. Today, Danielson continues, I'm going to tell you about another weapon that uses Aether. Like Cadet Snow, I will not go into the math and explain it in layman's terms. If you take the gunnery path, you will learn all the nitty gritty details, but that isn't necessary for this lesson. Danielson pulls down a projector screen and walks to the back of the class where an overhead projector sits. As he talks, he adds and moves transparencies. Several of our ships were original vessels of war. While we no longer have wars, for even a small one would destroy the last remnants of our race, we do have a need for weapons capable of massive destruction. There are rumors that weapons capable of destroying whole cities were brought with us, but those are only rumors. Danielson puts an image of an asteroid on the screen. This beauty was dubbed Little Texas. Its surface area was about the size of that country. It was spotted shortly after we passed the orbit of Jupiter. It was on a collision course with the fleet. At the same time, the Aether shield and drive were still being built, and we were stuck on our original trajectories. An image of a ship with a great barrel sticking from it, the atrocity, replaced the asteroid. We designed a new type of gun and renamed the ship on which it was built. The idea was to hit it hard enough to divert its course. While I'm sure you all knew that little bit of history and were taught that this gun and others like it were built and keep the fleet safe, what you didn't know is that these guns use Aether. A schematic of the gun goes up next. In its simplest form, the projectile is a dense material. We use lead encased in a magnetic bottle. Surrounding this is another magnetic bottle. Between the bottles is a layer of Aether. Both bottles were designed to break on impact. The lead portion of the original projectile weighed about 4 pounds, and the projectile contained enough Aether to convert the entire mass. The total and sudden release of that much energy was calculated to be sufficient to divert Little Texas's course enough to miss the fleet. We miscalculated. Another image of an asteroid goes up. This rock never got a name. It is about the size of one of our converted tankers. It is the largest fragment of what is left of Little Texas, and it was last seen heading off towards Mars. Danielson let that sink in. We dismantled that weapon and replaced it with several smaller ones. It is these that we now use to deflect asteroids. We never built another projectile weapon on that scale. Even if we thought it might be handy, we did not want it falling into the wrong hands. Sebo stands at attention next to his desk. Cadet Snow, you have a question? Sir, yes, sir. I actually have two. Who are the wrong hands? There's nobody out here but the people we brought with us and those of us born here. What's your second question? Well, how could we blow up such a large mass? I mean, when we combined the Aether with the lead, the resultant energy would only affect lead. Did we do some sort of spectral analysis or precognitive ritual to know the rock contains sufficient lead for that to be the best material to use? Good job. That's the question I was hoping somebody would ask. It is one we can answer when requested, but we cannot volunteer. I'll answer your first question, then the next. Whenever there are large groups of people specifically coming from a variety of backgrounds and cultures, invariably there will pop up those who might decide to change things, to make their own life better, even at the cost of the living standards or even the lives of others. It is part of our job to make sure everyone is treated fairly and by the rules we agreed upon before taking to space. Holding the charter is the primary reason for the existence of internal security, the other being to make sure there is a fleet to return to Earth when that eventuality comes to pass. As to Little Texas, we had no idea what the rock was made of. Instead of working with dubious science and protracted precognitive methods, we used a well established, little known science, which I must hear an oath from you before discussing. Danielson motions for everyone to get to their feet. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear to keep this information from public knowledge. I am to only discuss it with people who are already aware of the knowledge and to divulge it only on a need to know basis. Danielson watches and listens to make sure everyone is making that vow. Okay, so the big secret is DNA, denaturalized Aether. While it is primarily the same as the Aether we all know and love, it has two main differences. Aether is lightly magnetized, which is what makes it attractive to matter, and why a magnetic bottle suffices to hold it. When it touches an atom, it interacts with the protons and electrons. which is part of those long formulas Cadet Snow mentioned that demonstrate why the plasma will only react with the same element that created it. When we create DNA by a process I am not allowed to discuss, because I don't know how, we remove the magnetism from the aether. Now, when it touches an atom, it interacts with the neutrons, leaving the electrons and protons alone. The resulting plasma affects all neutrons, not just the type of matter that contained the neutrons. The lead and DNA combo created a stronger blast than anticipated. Can anyone tell me why? Cadet G is the only one to raise her hand. At Danielson's nod, she stands at attention beside her desk. Sir, the atomic mass of lead is 207, with an atomic number of 82, which means there are 125 neutrons per atom, over half again the number of protons. The energy released would be 150% more than expected with normal aether, and it would affect everything it touched, not just lead. Very good. You may take your seat. With that in mind, I have an assignment for you. You don't need to worry about the crazy formulas, just use the ratios we used here. Bring me a 2-page report comparing an aether water reaction with a DNA water reaction. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 11 of The Problem with Aether. Next time, Sebastian receives his very first internal security duty assignment, but what begins as a routine security detail quickly uncovers something no one expected to find. At the same time, difficult choices begin to shape the futures of those closest to him, while powerful officers continue watching his every move. Until then, this is Mr. Jim. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on our next adventure.